Hey there, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. I am Jessica Hayes, founder of the Lockbox Advantage, and today we're just going to talk about kind of the basic launching point for almost every coaching client that we've worked with, like how we get started. The first thing we talk about is what your goals are. And the idea here is to really be able to reverse engineer the activity that's then going to be necessary for you to meet those goals, right? The important thing for agents to understand is that financial goals can be really tricky because it's very easy to get wrapped up in that gross commission income number when really that's not the actual number you're taking home. So for most agents, what they net in their business is going to be around 40% of what they gross. Does that make sense, guys? So what you want to net, the amount of money you want to take home and put into your bank account for your living expenses after all of your business expenses have been accounted for, your broker splits, any additional fees, your licensing fees, your MLS fees, your central lock fees, your property taxes, your fuel costs, your marketing costs, your advertising costs, all of those costs need to be accounted for when you're setting your goals, okay? So let's say, for example, you're really hoping to net $100,000. That's the amount of money that you want to bring home for your personal spending. Well, then we're going to probably go through all of your expenses and find that instead of $100,000, we'll just take that $100,000 number there and divide it into 4, and we're going to find out you need to gross $250,000, right? Because we're now looking at what your retention is going to be, because $250,000 times 0.4 or 40% is going to leave us that $100,000 that you want to retain. So if we're looking at a now gross commission income target of $250,000, then what we want to do is determine what your average price point is, what your average commission rate is for you in your business, and what that means in terms of how many units you need to generate given your current state of business. Okay, so let's say, for example, your average commission is $10,000. Okay, so we're looking at, let's see here, that's an average price point of $400,000 if your average commission rate is 2.5%. Now, I am not talking about industry averages. I need to clarify. This is what we look at for the personal individual average. So in this imaginary scenario, this is an agent whose average price point is $400,000, whose average commission rate for their personal performance is 2.5%, and they average $10,000 per unit. Now, then obviously we know if they are shooting for $250,000 in gross commission income, then they simply need to generate 25 units with that target. Okay. Now, what's really fun about having these numbers is that we then know there are different levers we can pull to get them to their target, because the most important goal is going to be that GCI and net income number versus the actual volume or unit. So this particular agent could say, okay, well, if I'm able to increase my average commission rate by 0.5%, so let's say at $400,000, they are able to increase their unit or their percentage, their commission percentage, to 3% instead of 2.5%. Well, now they're making $12,000 instead of $10,000 per unit. And so we can look at that 250,000 divided by 12,000, and now they only need 21 units versus 25 units. You guys tracking here? I hope so. So once we get that broken out, okay, and we can say, hey, we know that our target is going to be this average commission rate. We know our target is going to be this price point. We know our target is going to be this overall commission per unit. Okay. Now, once we have that broken out, we can really focus on the unit side of things in terms of activity and outcome. So let's say, just for the sake of simplicity, we're still shooting for 25 units at 2.5% with an average price point of $400,000. So we know in order to generate 25 units, statistically, you're going to need to attend 75 agency appointments. Okay, now there are going to be times when you go on an agency appointment and that client chooses not to work with you. There are going to be times when you go on an agency appointment and that client ultimately does not pull the trigger and end up buying or selling a home. So you cannot assume that 100% of the agency appointments you attend are going to result in an actual closed sale. So we know 25 statistically on average is going to look like 75 agency appointments that you're going to need to hold. Now, the one exception to this rule is once you've been in our coaching program for a while, we're actually tracking each of these steps with you, and we'll know your personal conversion rate. So if you personally, instead of converting at a 33% rate or converting at a 50% rate, well, then we would need to recalculate those ratios. And this could be a fun project for you guys. If you know how many agency appointments you've attended in the last 12 months and how many of those agency appointments resulted in both an agency agreement signed and a closed sale, use that conversion rate instead. Excuse me. Okay, so moving right along here. Let's assume, for the sake of this argument, that we're looking for 75 agency appointments held. So we're going to take that 75 number and we're actually going to multiply it by 110%, which shows me that we need to book 82.5 units, which is not possible. So we need to book 83 agency appointments. And the reason we add that 10% buffer is that we want to account for no-shows and cancellations. Because even if you never hold the appointment, you never get the at-bat, you never have the opportunity to then turn that into a closed sale, right? So now we know, okay, we need 83 appointments over the next 12 months. Great. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Now we have to figure out how many conversations you need to get into to generate those 83 appointments. And that number really is different for every single person out there. On average, what I have found in our business is that when agents are prospecting within their SOI, they can usually expect to close or book an agency appointment for one appointment out of every 20 contacts. Now, if you are working with cold leads, if you're circle dialing, if you're farming, that number can increase up to 40. If you're somebody that does both of those things, you work with new cold leads and you work with SOI, you may want to find a balance around 30. If you're somebody that invests a lot of money in inbound lead generation and you're really primarily talking to people who have raised their hand and said, hey, I want to buy a home right now, you can probably drop that down to like 10. So know your business, know your sources here. For the sake of simplicity, for this example, I'm going to assume about 1 in 30. I'm going to assume this imaginary agent is a 50-50 split between outbound cold prospecting and SOI management. So we're going to take that 83 appointment set target and we're going to multiply that number by 30. And what that tells me is that I need 2,490 conversations, which sounds like a big number, but don't stress. That's over the course of a whole year, okay? So 2,490 is my target for the year. Now we need to really figure out our time management and how we're going to make this possible. So when we are making those commitments, I like to have my agents first decide, how much time are you taking off this year? And I mean, be really serious about it. Most people are not getting a lot of work done between the week between Christmas and New Year's. Most people are not getting a lot of work done the week of Thanksgiving. Most people are going to take a few days off for their birthday, their kid's birthday, their spouse's birthday, maybe a parent or best friend's birthday. If you're getting married, are you going to be taking a honeymoon? Are you taking just a family vacation for the sake of taking a family vacation, right? Like there's going to be thises and that's that happen throughout the year. In order for you to maintain a healthy work-life balance, you have to plan accordingly. So for most agents, what we have found is it ends up being about 40 work weeks a year out of 52. And so I guess we take 3 months off. That happens. You don't think about it a lot, but it does happen. So now let's look at this 2490 number and divide it by 40 working weeks. And that tells me we need 62 and a quarter conversations each one of our 40 working weeks throughout the year. Perfect. Now I need you to decide what days are you going to actively commit to prospecting. For most people, we recommend that they set aside time for prospecting on purpose 5 days a week. You're not going to do it 7 days a week. Don't make the mistake of calculating these numbers on 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. That's not realistic. It's not even a healthy goal. You want to make these goals and these targets really attainable. You want to make sure that you're building a plan that you can stick to so that you reach the goal that you're after. So let's say we're going to work 5 days a week, 40 weeks a year. We're going to take that 62 and a quarter, divide it by 5 days a week. And now it says we need 12.45 contacts each day, 5 days a week, 40 weeks a year. We can't have 12.45 contacts. So for the sake of this exercise, we're just going to say 13 is our magic number. We need to have 13 conversations every single day. That's very attainable, you guys. If you are using an auto dialer, you can get about 15 conversations in an hour. This is not a quality competition. This is pure quantity. So if you are cold calling somebody and you say, hey, I'm Jessica with Banana Real Estate, and they hang up on you immediately, it's okay. They answered the phone. They said hello. You talked to them. They hung up. Still a contact. You can call it back and say, oh gosh, I'm so sorry we got disconnected. They might hang up on you again. They might laugh. They might be embarrassed. Doesn't matter. It's still a contact because we are only expecting to get a yes 1 out of every 30 times we talk to somebody. And it's really important that you remember that as you're going through the actual activity. What tends to happen is that you get 29 no's in a row and you're thinking, man, this isn't working. I have to try something else. And that is the hugest mistake you can make because in reality, you were exactly on track to meet your goals. What people don't understand is that success does not look like win after win after win after win. Not in this industry. In this industry, success looks like perseverance and consistency. And if you have the math behind it and you understand your goal, it becomes a lot simpler, a lot easier to kind of navigate through the no's and make your way to those yeses. Now, when we're talking about prospecting time, you don't have to be the person that makes cold calls. Not every person likes cold calls. Not every person is very good at cold calls. So the next step in kind of our coaching process is that we really kind of converse with you. We dive into your business and we figure out what type of prospecting you are most efficient with. For some people, I have clients whose prospecting is legitimately, they go to happy hour 4 days a week. That is their commitment to their business. And in going to happy hour 4 days a week, they are able to walk out of that happy hour with 2 to 3 new names every single time because they're the life of the party and they know how to network. That's great. It works. That's no problem at all. We have other clients whose prospecting is, well, they are very, very active in their moms groups online. They're very, very active in their kids' soccer league. They're very, very active in their work, in their gym area, right? Like they go to the gym, they make friends. CrossFitters. CrossFitters are a thing in our company. So you just have to figure out where your sweet spot is. The goal is conversations. It's not a matter of conversations through open house or conversations through cold calling or conversations through door knocking. It doesn't matter where the conversations come from. What matters is that conversations happen. So if you're great at open house, fantastic. Do open house after open house after open house, and you can maybe get all 63 of your contacts in the course of 2 or 3 days. That's perfect. There's nothing wrong with that. You just have to be intentional about how you dedicate that time. Hopefully that makes sense, you guys. And that's really the gist of this here. I want you to get really intentional and on purpose about breaking down your exact target, your daily target. And if you know in your heart, my goal is to have 13 conversations every single day to the tune of 62 conversations every single week, then you know when you're done for the day. You know that you've had 13 conversations, regardless of whether or not you booked an appointment that day. It's a good day. It's a win. And it's important that you allow yourself to feel like, hey, that's a win. Because if you allow yourself to feel like you have failed, it will impact the next day and the day after that and the day after that. Nobody wants to wake up in the morning and feel like a failure. And it's very, very easy to mistake progress for failure. That is my soapbox. I'm going to hop off of it now. Make sure that you're being realistic with your goals and your time commitments on this one. Make sure that when you wake up in the morning, you are laser focused on your conversation number every single day, however you're going to make those conversations happen. And make sure when you lay your head down at night, you can feel good about it because you know that you made your conversation number. Not because you booked a bunch of appointments. If you did, fantastic. If you didn't, that's okay too, because we have accounted for that in your goal planning. Hope that helps. Have an absolutely phenomenal, productive, exciting, great day. And I will see you guys next week.